Hi, this is Pam, Flower Patch Farmhouse, and it's raining out, but we're nice and dry in the greenhouse. Today, I wanted to share with you how I pot up some sweet peas. It's not a big rocket science, but I'm doing this today because I had to pre-sprout them. These were some old seeds that I have found in my refrigerator that fell under something, and they're from last year, like way last year. So I didn't know if they were viable. So I pre-sprouted them, and I did that in some coffee filters. Some people use paper towels. That will work. But I have found that sometimes if I don't get to them soon enough, which that happens, sometimes the roots will grow into the fibers of the paper towels, and then you have to cut the paper towel or risk harming the root. Doesn't always happen, but it has happened. So that doesn't occur with the coffee filters. So here's the coffee filters, and I can already look through without opening and see the little white sprouts. Hopefully that's focusing for you. Anyways, I will open this up and we will look at them. I'm being very careful because I don't want to dump them out. They're not sticking to the coffee filter. Oh yes. So let me zoom you down here, and you can see just about every single, well, I think every one of them did sprout. They all sprouted. Hip, hip, hooray. So let me pull this down. So you see those? Those are little sprouts. And now I can pot them into these pots. I went for the taller. These are recycled. These are from different proven winter plants that either I or some of my friends have purchased over the years. I have people save me their pots because I reuse them all the time. So that was the one variety. Now let's look at the other one. And let's see how it did. And I'll let you know, since I don't want to have to move the camera again. And it looks like all of them have sprouted too. Yes, every single one have sprouted. Excellent. Okay, so what I had done was I put them in the damp coffee filter, folded it over, and put it in a plastic bag, just a reusable plastic bag, and set it on top of my refrigerator, and it did fine. Now this is an old thing of dahlia seeds, and it looks like there's some green in there. I mean, these are really old. These are like from 2016. So that's why I thought I'm going to pre-sprout these and see how they do. And I had looked at them the other day, and they were doing nothing. And oh my word, quite a few have sprouted. So I've got to get those potted up too. I really didn't anticipate that, being they are 7 years old. So it shows that good packaging and seeds and keeping them safe, they stay viable. Okay, I'm going to wrap this back up so it stays moist. Now, I like the deeper pots with sweet peas because they like their roots to go down. Now, normally, for me, I've had just as good success planting directly in the garden 3 to 4 weeks before my last frost date, which that is early May. My frost date is late May, so I plant them in early May. And I may start these now. This is late March. Let's say it's the 18th, I think, 19th today. And these will get started. And I can take cuttings from them. You can start sweet peas from cuttings if I want to get more of these particular colors. But I have found that when I go to put these out in the garden, that even though these are started well over a month sooner than the ones I put directly in the ground, the ones I put directly in the ground will catch up. They may start a little bit smaller, but they catch right up as soon as it warms up. And they seem to be a little hardier when the heat hits. So I don't know what that is. If it's the tougher growing conditions, I don't know. But that's just one thing. So I will share that later. Now, I had mentioned before that I was going to share about sweet peas, how you can get them to grow in warmer temperatures, hotter conditions. Now, if you live in, like I used to live down in the San Joaquin Valley, which it gets very, very hot. the seeds would be planted out in the fall. When it warmed up in the spring, you would get a lot of bloom, and then they were kind of done when the real heat hit. And that, if that's your conditions, then that's when you should plant them and enjoy them. But for me, even though I'm zone 8A, I do not plant mine in fall and then get a spring bloom, even though a lot of times they will tell you in zone 8 that you can do that. It doesn't work for me because of our late freezes. We'll get warm-ups and then hard freezes. It always kills them. So if I wait until early May to put my seeds in the ground, and then the conditions are calm enough that they can live through any freezes or whatever, and they're not as big. If they're really tall and they get those hard freezes, they just don't make it. Also, I wanted to make sure and tell you that if you want sweet peas that will grow through in hotter temperatures, after you've gotten them a good start, they always want to start in cooler temperatures, but then it'll suddenly heat up. Get the heirloom varieties. Now, one seed company that I know that carries the heirloom varieties that are heat resistant and will do better in hotter conditions is Renee's Garden Seeds. And they will be listed for hotter temperatures. Anyways, they're the heirloom ones. Now the Spencer types, which are the ones you get like for cutting gardens, they are not the heirloom types and are more heat sensitive. The heirlooms are typically not grown for cutting, though you can cut them. They're not grown for the cutting market because they don't get as long as stems and they don't have as big of flowers. But if you want to enjoy sweet peas through a good portion of the summer, then get the heirloom varieties that will survive those type of conditions. And also, I will have to say that I grew several varieties, even some Spencers, that they grew well, then it got really hot and they stopped blooming. But they still were growing as long as I kept them moist and hydrated. And other plants were growing around them, putting on blooms, etc. Kind of shaded the roots, so the roots stayed cool. And they did fine. Once it cooled back down again towards fall, in late, I'd say mid to late August for us, they started blooming again, and they bloomed better than ever. So even if they pause, if they haven't succumbed to disease or other things, let them be. Don't pull them out. They may start blooming again. So it all depends on where you're located, etc. So we get, for reference, we get into the mid 90s and sometimes almost to 100 in July. So that's how hot it gets. But that being said, also, I'm going to bore you to death. In hotter areas, if you put them in a place that they get a good 4 to 6 hours morning sun and then afternoon shade, they will also carry on much longer. So let's carry on with planting these. Now, they only need to be planted very, very shallowly. I'm not even going to fill this all the way up. But I'm going to start putting, I'll probably put 2 or 3 in here. You only have to space them further apart if, and I'm kind of putting, I don't know if that is a sprout or a root. It might be a root, but either way, it will find its way. I'll put it sideways in here. What I mean by sideways is the little sprout is coming out the side of the seed. And then it'll make its way up or down, whichever way it needs to go. I think I'm going to do 3 in these. And then I'll just cover barely ½ an inch of soil. Barely ½ an inch. That's all they need. They don't need to be really deep. And then you just fill in. And I will put these in a tray. Let me see, where did I put my trays? Right here. And right now we're getting pretty cold at night still. So I will go ahead and take these in the house. And then next week it's supposed to heat up at night, get a little warmer. They can take the 30s at night in this greenhouse because it heats up in here during the day. And then even though it doesn't hold the heat super well, it holds enough that they will be fine. So I put 3 in that one. I will put 2 in this one because it's not very wide. Again, I'm planting them sideways where the sprout's coming out the side. Covered up. Now this one is wider, so I'm going to go ahead and put 3 in this one. It's wider and deep. And you only want to space them super far apart if you're growing them for show. What was this? Oh, this was a Super Tunia Bordeaux Petunia. A proven winners. I'll tell you something about this. I planted these. I had seen raves and raves and raves about them. And they did nothing for me. Terrible. And so I gave up on them. I potted them up into a big hanging basket, and I gave them to my mom. 2 hanging baskets, actually, because I had 3 of them, and they spread pretty far. Hung them over by her chicken pen where it's super hot, and they did great. They just took off like crazy. So that's another point of right plant, right place. I just didn't have them in a good place. It wasn't hot enough for them. They seem to like it super hot. I have found that to be true of many of the Super Tunias. They don't do real well for me until it gets super hot. The bubblegum pink too is one of them behaves the same way. So I'm filling it up. Now you'll notice I had written the name on the side of here, so I didn't have to write it on a tag. And, oh, I was going to put it in a bigger pot. Oh, you know what? I don't have the right name on those, so I'm going to have to put these in here. Perfect, though. Got 3 right here. And when I go to take cuttings, I'll grow these out to take cuttings for you, and I will share how to do that in another video. Okay, those ones are done. I will do the same with these, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how, if you don't have pots like this, but you do have containers like this, or you could start saving containers like this. Is Daisy Sour Cream, and it's about the same height. Well, it is the same height as that one. So you could use these. I'm going to show you how to put holes in the bottoms really easily. But first I'm going to, I'll do that. I'll just do that. Okay, those can sit there. It's cool enough in here. It won't dry. In fact, I can lay this little piece of coffee filter over it. I'm going to point you down at my table, and you can see what I do. Now, this right here is a can of canned heat, Sterno Green. These come in super handy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to light it. It'll help because it's a little chilly in here, so give me a little bit of heat. Now, a lot of times I've done this in the house. I do it over my gas stove. Okay, that's lit. So you could do this inside if you want to. It's just a little stinky. And I have a fondue fork that I do this with, but I also use this as just an old paring knife that I use here in the greenhouse a lot. And so I tilt over my container and I just heat the knife. I get it good and hot, and then I just start putting it in there. Now you could try to punch it through without heating it, but that gets a little crazy because it, you got to really give pressure, and sometimes it slips. And you can also twist it if you wanted to make it a little bigger. And being out here in the greenhouse, I guess I have a better ventilation than in the house, but it still works. So lots of holes. I also do that with my, let me see, one of my jugs for, there it is, my winter sewing jugs. Now a lot of times you can, you can poke holes in it with your utility knife, but also I do it with this. Needs more. And let me see, I do it in the sides up here too, in case for some reason the bottom gets plugged by any soil or whatever, right here along the edges. Plenty of drainage is essential. So sometimes I go in straight and then I go across it, so it makes like a cross hatch. You can do this with a screwdriver, and all, but I use found items or recycle items instead of the tools. I think my husband would have a cow if I used one of his screwdrivers for this. I'd have to buy my own. But it all works, and then I will cut this open and use it. And that is how I poke holes in the bottom of containers, quickly and easily. I'm going to leave that going because it gives me a little bit of heat in here and I'm cold. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pot up my next, over here, can you see my next sweet peas? Well, maybe I'll do it where you can see a little bit closer what I'm doing, exactly what I mean by sideways. So let's go ahead and put it in, well, let's put it in this one. I've already got the name written on it. I'll go ahead and use this as a scoop. Now I'm just using regular potting soil. This one I think is Edna's Best by Evie Stone. And I'm not using my own because I don't have any readily available. It's all under snow. I did use some earlier for potting up a row. So here's the soil and here is the sprout, and I'm putting it in sideways. Sideways. 3 in that one. And then I just kind of fill it up a little bit. 1/2 inch. Good to go. And I'll do this one. This one, I think there's 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I could do two in one and 3 in the other. So 1, 2, 3. Cover. Press down. And this one could be the last. And then we'll just press these 2 down in there. And cover. Oh, those are already covered. Oh, better pay attention to what I'm doing, huh? So I will put them all in this tray. So I'm going to go ahead and put them all in this tray and take them in and put them on my stand, my shelf, metal rack that I showed you in my begonia planting. Oh, there was a seed, got away from me. And I don't know which one it was. I think it was the clotted cream. So let me put it in one of those. I'll put it right in the middle since I know I didn't put any right in the middle. Doesn't matter if they all grow in there. If I want to separate it out, I will. Okay, so that's those. So I will take these in, like I said, put them on my rack, and that is how you pot up sweet peas early. You don't have to have a special container or whatever. I just bought one and it was in a short 4-inch pot. And one ticket is you want to get them out into the garden when it's still cooler. You don't want to put them out when it's hot or warmer. They like the cooler temperatures to get started. Also, a good time to start them or to get them planted out is when they've very little growth, meaning they just have like 4 or 5 leaves on them, or maybe even less. They take better when they're planted sooner rather than waiting till they get real tall and you pinched them back, etc. That's just been my experience. So if you're having, I've heard so many people tell me they've had no success with sweet peas, and it could be a number of factors. 1, waiting too long to put them out in the garden. 2, it goes from too cool to too hot really quickly. And 3, try planting them straight out in the garden, but protect them. I have, old freezer baskets and cloches made from chicken wire and whatever, and I stick on top because the birds love to eat them, the seeds. So go ahead and protect them from the birds and you should have better success. And my friends, I think that is it on the sweet peas for today. Like I said, I'll show you when these get a little bit taller. We'll take some cuttings and we'll see how that flies. All right, I will see you in the next video. Just a quick note, I wanted to let you know that a lot of times with sweet peas, only 75% will germinate. And it's not that the other 25% aren't good or are not going to germinate, that they will germinate later. And that's just nature's way. And it might even be next season, because that's the way that that seems to protect itself in case something kills the first batch that sprouted. The second ones, the 25%, will then sprout and continue on the line. That was just something interesting I learned and thought I would let you know that in case, I mean, all of mine sprouted in here. These were excellent seeds, but I have had seeds where some of them did not. And then I wondered why. So don't just toss those seeds. Go ahead and plant them. They will germinate eventually. I am going to say goodbye now. So see you in the next video.